I only recognize it when things go my way. When they don't, I say, well, how come I didn't get that for Christmas? Or, I wanted to go to the prom with Becky Sue, and you didn't let me. You see, we don't understand karma. Even when we say we understand karma, we don't understand karma when it doesn't come down the way we wanted it to. I wouldn't have written the story that way. I would have won the lottery on that ticket that I bought if I was writing this. Why didn't I? There's a story I like to tell about this gentleman that for many, many, many years he would pray to God every night before he went to bed. Oh, dear Lord, please let me win the lottery. I promise to use it for good. So night after night, year after year, decade after decade, and finally he said, okay, look, I'm 70 years old, and I haven't won the lottery. Why, God, have you not given me the answer to my prayer? And, the deep voice comes and says, Bob, why didn't you meet me halfway and buy a ticket? Just once! I want you to do. I don't want to. You see, so all Krishna wants is us to offer loving service. And when you love somebody, you serve them. You want to do for them. As soon as you have wonderful feelings for somebody, the first thing you want to do is figure out what they would like. What do they like to eat? I want to fix them a meal the way they like it. Maybe they like this incense that I've bought. It's just delightful. I think I'll offer it. You see, my love. I'll give you my love. I want to do something. Why do we want to do that to someone we love? Because we want to please them. We want to see the look on their face of joy. We want them to enjoy. Because when someone enjoys because of our efforts, what happens to us? We enjoy. So, we're not the enjoyer. It's not that I don't enjoy on the level if I'm getting people to do for me. I enjoy when I do for others. When others enjoy, then I feel great satisfaction and great enjoyment. When you give pleasure, you feel pleasure. It's like if so many people I talk to, they feel unloved. There's not enough love in their life. There's not enough love in the world. And I tell them that if you go out in the world looking for love, it's going to be hard to find. But yet, if you go out in the world to love, you're going to be swimming in an ocean of love. You don't go looking for it. You go to give it. That's how you feel it. You give it with no strings attached. They don't have to love you back. You see, I get the pleasure of loving you. And if someone says, but I don't love you, that's okay. You don't have to. It doesn't change my love for you. Now, we have to understand our loving relationship with the Supreme first. We have to have that loving relationship with Him, that I love you, my dear Lord, with no strings attached. I just love you. I mean, I know you love me, but you don't have to show it. I just want the privilege of loving you. And so, the devotee realizes that you don't find a devotee very often anyway, that feels unloved. If anything, we feel overloved. Krishna, you're too kind. Isn't it? You're too kind. I mean, life is so much better than I deserve. And not only that, but you keep making it better. So if we really pay attention to this relationship we're having with God, He's constantly coaxing us closer with His love. You see, yeah.
Why does God need our love? I mean, it's obviously something we withhold from Him, and have to learn to do. So he must need it for a purpose.
It's not necessarily a need, because he's the complete whole. He is complete in and of himself, and everything that emanates from him is also complete. You see, so it's not a need; it's his desire to enjoy. You see, I mean, if you were God, you would enjoy, right?
I hope so.
Okay, so here you are. You're God. You can do anything you want. You can feel any way you want. So I desire to enjoy. What do I want to enjoy? I want to enjoy love. Love with what? Well, I don't know. I'll just cast out. Okay, all these entities. Now, all of these expansions of mine, I'll enjoy a loving relationship with my innumerable family. Innumerable. And so, it's his desire. But to make it interesting and genuine, I have to give you freedom of choice, free will, so that you can choose not to love me. Otherwise, what's the interest? You're just a robot. Someone says, I love you, God. Yeah, I know, that's the way I created you, darn it. Everybody says that. Nobody ever gives me a hard time. Well, it's always, I love you, I love you. Yeah, but why? Why do you love me? Because that's the way I made you. So I have to create you in such a way, although we've always been in existence, in the eternal world, in the scope of eternity, there's two things that work at the same time. We were created by God, but yet there never was a time when we did not exist. Now let your mind play with that. That's because he's God, he can do these things. You see. So he has wired us in such a way that we can make mistakes. We can make the wrong choice. Now that's necessary. You have to have the choice to reject him. Otherwise, what's the value of your love? You have to have the ability to choose something which is just idiotic. Well, I want to enjoy separately from you. Well, when you analyze it, that's just plain stupid. What kind of an idiot would say that to the source of enjoyment? Source of all sources. If I want pleasure, love, enjoyment, well, it comes from you. So, but I've got to be able to make the wrong judgment, and I've got to be able to say, no, I'm going to look somewhere else. That makes the relationship incredibly interesting, you see. It gives you, and all of us have an individual personality. It's like the snowflakes. We're all made of the same thing. Snowflakes are just frozen water. We're all made of the same thing, our souls, us. And you analyze us, you analyze Krishna, it's the same DNA, same stuff. So, but yet, like the snowflake, each one of us is individual. No two of us are exactly the same. That's the work of God. And there are innumerable, more than we can't even imagine, the amount of living entities like us, you see. And many of us may choose that I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to look for love somewhere else. As a matter of fact, I think you're doing a good job being God. No, everything you've created is really wonderful. It's all complete, and I'm really impressed. However, I might be able to do this too. Maybe I can do this God stuff. Yeah, why not? I mean, you're eternal, I'm eternal. I'm made of the same stuff you are. I think if I was in that chair, I could do it as good, probably better. A little envious. You get all the attention. You see, why can't I get at least a bunch of it? You see? So we're wired to where we can make a mistake. That's foolish. That's idiotic, isn't it? To think, well, God, I think I can be God too. But we're allowed to do that if we want to. And he says, that's okay. you can go to the material world and give it a shot. You know, you can go be all you can be. And I'll provide all the resources you need. And the only downside is you have to compete with everybody else there that wants to be me. So.
And then you end up in, after so many billions and billions and billions and billions of eons in Tucson.
Oh no. Still trying to be God. There was a guy that started a lecture one time by saying, I'm not here to convince you that I'm God. I'm here to convince you that you're God.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
You know, and so when you tell people that, they say, huh? Tell me more. I'm God? Why, yes, you are. You're God. I'm God, you are God. You know, so you can see how someone a little envious of the Supreme and drowning in an ocean of the darkness of ignorance might buy into that and say, whoa, this is huge. I can't wait to go home and tell my wife, but then she's going to say, you're not the God here. You may be God, and I may be God, but I'm in charge. So
what you said, but it then implies then at some point in the infinite, beginningless past, that we were completely united with God.
Oh yeah, yeah. We were there. We were His. We have an eternal relationship with Him. It's still running. It's still there. We don't know what that was, but we'll discover it. We can discover it in this lifetime. It'll be towards the end, but we'll know, who am I? Am I His friend? Am I His conjugal lover? Am I a parent? What is my eternal relationship with you? Once you transcend past a certain point, that comes. So in other words, if I'm your eternal servant, how do we relate? You see.
Mm-hmm.
So these are thoughts. This is high-level theology, I like to say.
Mm-hmm.
To think on that level. I have an eternal loving relationship with God. What is it? I want to discover that. Now that I've got all this information about Him and the possibilities of relationships, what's mine? How do you... In other words, that's like saying, you've given me a way to serve you. And I want to come out of this coma that I'm in, and I want it back. I want to wake up and resume my life that I've just somehow or other forgotten. I've been covered over by the material energy. I'm in a spiritual coma. And in the meantime, I'm thinking I'm all these other entities. I'm thinking I'm a human, or these guys in the backyard are convinced that they're dogs. I go out there and try to tell them they're not, and they look at me like I'm crazy. Their soul's just like us. They're just like us. They're convinced that they're dogs, and out of the karma, they're in that body. Because they have really good dog karma, they're in this household. Just see how fortunate they are. They're unfortunate, but yet fortunate. These dogs will probably be human beings next life, more than likely devotees.
That's for sure. It probably has anything to say about it.
Yeah. So the process of practicing any religion is to come out of this coma that we're in, take away this ignorance, and give me knowledge. Because as long as I'm in an ignorance, I'm going to be so fearful. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of the future. I'm afraid of death. I'm afraid of God. I'm afraid. I don't feel comfortable. And to do that, there are so many things that I can try to overcome this comfort that I have. Intoxication, you name it. I'll try through my senses to enjoy on such a level that all these questions that I have and these fears that I have will be overridden for now. I'll deal with it later. You know. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm. There's a book out, I sent you an email, Bob, I don't know if you got it, written by a woman, a doctor, her name was Orloff. I looked at her site, it's really interesting, and it's called The Ecstasy of Surrender.
Mm.
And what it is, she counsels people, like Bob does, how to talk about death, face death, and has meditation techniques of inviting death, that is inviting that whole uncomfortable feeling in, you know, because when people are very ill and they've been ill maybe for a long time, like my mother was, and then there's, you know, they know they're going to die, they just don't know what moment it's going to be, so there must be a lot of anxiety and edge to that feeling all the time. And anyway, it's interesting that, and you mentioned surrender. And also, I was told, I don't know if this is true, maybe someone knows, that Islam, the word Islam means surrender.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that?
Wow, I didn't know that.
Mm.
What's the process of religion? To surrender. So, but this death, it's just like fearing death is like fearing the teeth of the tiger. You know, we fear the teeth of the tiger. Srila Prabhupada uses this example. The tiger's teeth are, you know, I don't want to deal with them. But yet those same teeth are welcomed by the tiger's cub, because those teeth will pick the cub up by the nape of the neck, and they love it. The tiger picks those cubs up, you see. So for the devotee, death is like the teeth of the tiger to the cub. Death has come to take me to Krishna, because my doubts are gone, my fears are gone. And I'm eager to retain my lost relationship. I want it. I want it back. I want to serve him. I want to be his servant. And at that time, if Krishna says, well, but I'll tell you what, instead of you coming back and picking up where you left off when you left, I'd like you to take birth in the material world again and bring others when you do come. And the devotee says, gladly. Will that make you happy? Oh, it will make me terribly happy. You know. And I just beg my Lord, please don't let me forget you. Well, I'll do anything. I'll stay there for an eternity. But now I know you're with me. And I know you. I know my position with you. You see. So that's a whole different now. See, the devotee gets to the point where he doesn't even want liberation. I mean, not that we are negative towards it, but it's not, generally we say to God, you know, let me go to heaven. You know, when I die, I want to be liberated, I want to go back home, back to Godhead. We should want that. But ultimately, when we advance to a certain point in our love with Krishna, I'm not even asking you for liberation. I just want to always remember you. I don't want to ever forget you. Now that I've remembered you, I don't want to ever forget. That's the supreme prayer. Let me always remember your pastimes and your form, you see, and send me where you will. Whatever you want. Use me as your instrument. And the more you use me to please yourself, I'll be happy, I'll be pleased. So I'm not, this is the nature of personalities like Srila Prabhupada. He was, Krishna says, I need you to go. And Prabhupada says, and Krishna says, oh, but I'll go with you. I'll go with you. Never was there a time when Prabhupada forgot Krishna. Someone asked him, do you remember how that conversation went? Someone asked Prabhupada.
They asked him, when did you first start thinking about Krishna? He said, I always think of Krishna.
I don't. There was never a time when I didn't. Never. You know, even from, I read the other day, he was saying his first memories were around 6 months old. And they were of Krishna. he can still remember. You know, not every minute of it, but you know, some memories from that time.
Thank you for a really nice talk. I'm just watching the clock up there. It's 20 till 8, so we maybe, I don't know if you want to have one more question and we...
Oh yeah,
start
yeah,
with
I'm
some-
glad you're watching.
I'm not, I'm enjoying
We're all enjoying it, yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
What does the chant that we said in the beginning mean?
Boy, that's the best question. That chant is the oldest love song. It's the original love song from which all love songs come. We're praying. You see in that picture, there's Radha and Krishna, the boy and the girl. The girl is Radharani. She is Krishna. They're the same, but yet they're different. So she is his pleasure potency, part of his internal potency. So we pray to her, Hare, Hara is addressing her, to engage us in the loving service of our Lord Krishna. Please engage us in eternal loving service of Lord Krishna. So we can't get to Krishna without going through her. We become her servant, and actually the servant of her servants, and their servants, and their servants. You see, we beg, please engage me in the servant of your servants, my dear Lord. Oh, goddess of devotion. Give me Krishna prema. Give me love of Godhead. So it's that loving prayer. It's the original love song. And it's eternal. But there are many periods on this earth planet, and in the different places in the material world, where it's not present until a certain time when it's introduced. And if you chant that song, then by vibrating that sound, those mantras, it's mantra meditation. Mantra is two Sanskrit words together. Man means mind, tra means to free. So a mantra is a sound vibration that frees the mind. Frees it from what? Material darkness, ignorance. So as you hear that sound, you're actually experiencing Krishna. God is there in that sound vibration. You see, so we get to associate directly with him. So it raises your consciousness, eradicates sins. It changes your entire life. When you vibrated it one time, it changes your life and lives forever. And more than likely, once you say it one time, you won't have to take birth here again. If you can allow your relationship with Krishna to grow and fructify in love, then you're liberated. And liberated here, not at death, here, while you're still walking on this planet. While we're in these bodies, we can be liberated and experience. So that way we can tell if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it works, you see. But we get to taste it. We don't have to wait until death to see that I cast my faith in the right direction. It fructifies. It positively does. So,
Thank you so much.
thank you. Absolutely my pleasure. All right, Krishna.
It's my friend Angela.
Yeah, I was thinking, have I met you before?
No,
Yeah, that's the first, never.
This is my
the
first time.
very, very first time.
So nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you as well.
Thank you for coming.
Yes,
Let's
thank
see,
you
who else
for
is
having me.
new here? Let's see. Who else is, I think, has been here before, right? Except,
Mother Krishna Kumari.
We
Yeah.
met.
Yeah, okay, great.
Well, she's not new, but this is her first time here. So, let's chant some Hare Krishna, huh? Are you in for that? Since we probably don't know all the mantras, all of us, so we'll just start out with, should we start with just the Maha Mantra? Yeah. Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna
Yay!
For President Day. Ooh, the Lord has been summoned. And he's here, he's standing right over there behind Karen. So, here we are. Wow. Tim's again. This is really sweet. I got the great privilege of having Bob and Tim for lunch yesterday. Both of them.
Did we taste good?
You guys are great. A little overdone. But
Okay.
what the heck?
He had acid indigestion.
So, who called this meeting and why are we here?
Angela did. She called us. She says, "What is this outfit you're involved with?"
Who are Who are these weirdos? And why am I here?
Not at all. I know why I'm here.
Yeah, figuring out that for the human being is the most important thing. We ask that usually when we're young. We wonder, why am I here? And then we don't get the answers we need, so we go on through life and probably many people never think of that again. And if they do, they think, there's no answer to that. So, but there is an answer. And tonight is open mic night. If you have comments, questions, whatever, let's go for it. I can read a little something if you like.
I know there's two people that have questions in here.
And
Because I'm a psychic. One of them is over there in the blue, and the other one is right here by my side. Oh, and also with blue.
Phil usually has questions.
I always have a question mark like this. Yeah. Or where you are. Why is there such a difference? I've been reading different versions of the Gita just to, compare. Why is there such a difference in translation?
Oh, because you take a book as popular as Bhagavad Gita.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is, can you imagine how many Gitas have been sold in the last 5,000 years? Not just in India, but around the world. So if you're going to put a political spin on something, if you're going to translate it into a language, but yet you want to make your own personal statement. And it's great. It's fantastic, you see. So depending on the inner desire of the person who translates it, they translate it a certain way. Because I have something that I want to say based on this. You see, in other words, I get some ideas from this, but what this really means is, and so that's why when Srila Prabhupada translated the Bhagavad Gita into English, he called it Bhagavad Gita as it is. In other words, I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to move it around. And just to back that up, we put the original Sanskrit with the transliterations and the translation, so that any scholar that knows Sanskrit can look at it and say, yeah, this is correct. Mm-hmm. This actually says in English what the Sanskrit is saying. That's pretty rare for anybody to include the original Sanskrit. I don't know if anybody else did that. More than likely not. Because who's going to challenge them? You see? And so their interpretation of what Krishna is saying fit their philosophy. So many times. Whatever their philosophy might be that they want to portray to the world. You see, or whomever may read it. So, but it's a perfect book, because I've got this book that most scholars have heard of it, but you've never read it. Well, I'll translate it into English, and so many people will read it. Wow, an English translation of Bhagavad Gita, that's fantastic. And I understand that you know Sanskrit, so I can't wait to read it.
Oh, I thought you said I know Sanskrit. I speak it fluently.
Yeah.
Not a word.
So,
That seems to be the way of Holy Scripture. I'm thinking of the Christian scriptures, hundreds of translations, hundreds of versions, and
literally
there's Roman Catholic versions, Protestant versions, modern English, inclusive language translations.
yeah. In other words, we or I have a feel on what this book should say. And everybody else is wrong, and I'm right. So I think it should be this way. So Bhagavad Gita as it is, and in each language that it's been translated into, which is almost every language on the planet. Now, how many Bhagavad Gitas have been sold? Do you know the number, Mother? 500 million?
Yeah.
No, it's the biggest selling book of all time, save except for maybe the Bible. But of one printing of a book, this one has got to be close to the absolute top. 500,000.
You mean Prabhupada's translation?
Yeah, Prabhupada's translation. And growing. It's not that we've saturated it. The market still, it requires more and more printing. The book distributors that I know many traveling book distributors in America, let's say North America, and they're full-time, and they just let them sail constantly. They never, as a matter of fact, they're always increasing. Last year, our goal for our ISKCON was to increase book distribution by 20%. And the end-up number was, I'm sorry to say, only 25%. 100% would have been better. But, so 25% increase over the year before. And so, and this year we've decided that with a year like that, then we'll go for 10% increase this year. So, and I know we'll break that. We'll smash right through that. In India, book distribution is incredible, absolutely phenomenal, isn't it? In Russia, the books are flying in Russia, and I'm not talking on the scale that you'd see them flying off the shelf in a bookstore. I'm talking guys that go out all day, every day for 8 to 10 hours a day, at least 6 days a week, selling hundreds a day.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So it's just ever increasing. So, but yeah, but Prabhupada's feeling is let's tell it like it is. In other words, what is Krishna saying? What does God want? What's he saying to us? See? And that's why there's so many different. They seem so different when you read them. Somebody, it's just like I know nothing about nuclear fission. Is that right? Is it fission or fusion?
Fusion.
Fusion? Okay.
Both.
There's both.
Both.
Well, I don't know anything about either one. Oh, Hare Krishna Bangay, Prabhu. When did you get here?
He just know.
He materialized.
He appeared.
Whoa.
He's a very high
He
yogi.
manifested.
Good to see you. Pranam. So, what was I?
Nuclear.
You don't know anything
Oh,
about
I don't know anything.
Nuclear fission.
Well, I know I don't know anything about nuclear fission. What's that got to do with anything? I'm just kidding. But if I wrote a book based on somebody's compilation of nuclear fission or fusion, one or the other, well, I could spin it and make it sound, but I don't know what I'm talking about. So if somebody that's not a realized soul is going to translate the words of the Supreme Godhead, they should be a realized soul.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they should know something about what they're talking about. And that's just, it hasn't been the case. You see. So, this is not, Bhagavad Gita is not a political statement. It's just delivering the mood of the Lord, the Supreme Lord, to the reader, you see. And it answers every question. When I first read Bhagavad Gita back in the early 70s, I remember the first thing I thought is this is answering every question that I've ever had. As I go page by page. Why am I here? What's the meaning of life? What am I? Is there life after death? What does that look like? Is there a God? What is God? What does he want from me? Do I have a relationship? What is that? What, you know, all this, page by page, I felt like, oh, I'm going to walk away with something that takes away fear. What is that? What removes all fear? Knowledge. Fear of the unknown. Fear comes from the unknown. What could happen? Is there a God? What could he possibly want? You see, as soon as I understand that, I have no fear of this entity anymore. As soon as I understand Krishna as he is, then I start to love him. And instead of always wondering, what's that moment going to be like when I'm forced out of this body, when my soul leaves, the moment of death. And then here we are. Now I've got to deal with this supreme entity. Which makes us dread death even more. It's not bad enough that I have to die.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to deal with God now. And I don't know a thing about this guy. I'm not prepared. I got to go into the biggest meeting, most important meeting of my life, and I am totally unprepared. I don't know what notes to take in or what he's expecting or what do you do when you see him? How do you address him? Should I approach him? Should I stay back? You know. So, as we read Bhagavad Gita and start to understand the personality of Godhead, then all of a sudden our doubts are removed, the fears are removed, and then we can feel love for this entity. Because now I know what he is. I know what he's like. And I know that he loves me unconditionally, and he has for eternity, and he always will for eternity. And all he wants is for me to take his hand. Be my devotee. Just come on. You can, if you want, you can stay there and practice this religion, that religion, and whatever. And maybe someday you'll give up all religion and just become my loving servant. You'll have a loving relationship with me. That's what I want. Religion is a process to deliver us to love of Godhead. Isn't it right?
Should be.
I always love having, Jorge's got, he's, I was going to say the other side of the aisle. But
Yeah.
there is no aisle.
There's no
So we're on the same page with this God thing. And yeah, isn't that what Lord Jesus was saying?
It was love God and serve each other. Love each other as you would love yourself.
Yeah. What's the first commandment? Love the supreme, love
God.
With all your mind,
with all your heart,
with
Yeah.
your soul.
And then love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah. So it's the same message in the Bhagavad Gita. Same. So first and foremost, when I started thinking about it, when I heard that commandment when I was a little boy, I thought, yeah, God, I love you. And in my heart, I'm thinking, I don't know anything about you. You know, if the big voice had come from the sky and said, "What do you love about me?" You've got a really nice voice. I love your work. You know, it's nice creation. You know. So before we're going to love somebody, we've got to learn about them, not just a little bit. We need to know a lot about them. You know, what's your favorite color? What's your sign? What's your sign? What do you like to eat? Oh, gee whiz, you know, what do you like to do for fun? You know, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? So we need to learn these things. We need to have information about this supreme entity, the supreme Godhead, so that as we learn more and more about Krishna, then the awe and reverence we have of that supreme Godhead, without knowing that loving face of Krishna, who is the supreme personality of Godhead, then those terms sound so heavy. The supreme Godhead. It seems like, you know, you're going into an emperor's castle. The supreme Godhead will see you now. Oh no! Wish me luck. If I don't come back, will you feed the dog? You know.
When I first heard that term, the supreme personality of Godhead, it really kind of threw me because I couldn't. I thought it was like, and that's exactly how I felt. It was like Oz.
Yeah.
The Wizard of Oz, and you're going into this castle or whatever, and you're going down that long hallway, and you're going to meet the supreme personality of Godhead, which is basically Oz, the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
You know, and who is he? And that was, you know, but you know, the Gita has really helped me because, especially, I have to say, the Gita was elusive for many, many years. I knew back in my 20s, I would see that book, many versions. You know, there's Christopher Isherwood's book, which I saw, and I never read Prabhupada's version until, 3 years ago. I saw it, but it was daunting. It looked like a big, thick,
Yeah.
you know. So it wasn't until I actually started reading it that I realized it's not that difficult. It really isn't. It's not that difficult.
It's the easiest.
It's an easy version, and it's and there were certain real strong aha moments. One was, the Supreme Personality of Godhead still didn't get that until I realized the bottom line there is that God has a personality.
Yeah.
So that was that. And the other one was when I came to whatever chapter and verse, which Dharma slapped me in the face, was abandon all other forms of religion and follow me.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, what a relief.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a big relief.
Yeah.
You know.
Towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita, this is one of the conclusions of the Bhagavad Gita, what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Give up all forms of religion. Abandon all forms of Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
And become my loving devotee. And if you do, I personally will deliver you. And then he says, have no fear. Right?
Yeah. Have no fear.
You can just, in other words, basically what he's saying is, hey, take my hand.
Mm-hmm.
I see that you're pursuing me, and I like that. And I always wanted you to know that I'm pursuing you. You and I are together for eternity. And now you're coming back, and I'll help. As a matter of fact, I'll do it for you. All I want is for you to turn to me, become my loving devotee. And Krishna wants us to surrender. Bhagavad Gita, over and over and over again. How many times does he say that? Surrender to me, surrender, 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 surrender. You know. So for us in the material world, with our material contamination, we think that surrender word, that's not very attractive. You know, I mean, that's what Hitler did when we leveled Germany. It's what the Emperor of Tokyo or of Japan did after we dropped nuclear weapons. You know, General Lee had to surrender once his army was starved to death, and so on. So it's here now. Krishna wants me to surrender. So what we're missing, though, is this is a loving surrender between two people that love each other. When one surrenders, what does the other one do? They surrender too. Lovers surrender to one another. So Krishna wants you to surrender because he's waiting to surrender to you. You know, when not a heartfelt but a soul-felt surrender comes, Krishna says, "Oh, and I surrender to you, my lover." You see, which is the goal of human life. That's the goal of the soul, to reach that moment, and that's the uniting with God. That makes us complete again. So in other words, now we've learned at this point what God wants and what's our relationship. I'm his loving servant, and he's actually my loving servant. He served me always. You see, I stopped serving him, but he's still revved up and ready to serve me.